Eric P. Bishop. Welcome back to Suit Up the Podcast.
Thanks. I think I've been here a couple times.
You have. You are one of my favorite guests to have on the show because I think we just really get along well, is the fun
Mhm.
thing. Because, like, we will start going down long, great rabbit trails before you even click the record button or afterwards. And I think it's because you do a great job of making insightful observations about life. And that is something that I don't care what genre you write in. If you can't do that in a book, I don't think that people will connect with it on a real level in a lot of
Yeah, I think
senses.
that's a fair point. Well, thank you. I enjoy talking with you. Again, yeah, I go on too much way before we hit record, and I'm always giving you these fatherly little because I've been a little further down the path than you, so kind of like telling you like marriage advice, which, divorced person listen to marriage advice, probably not a great idea, but there could be some nuggets of wisdom in why mine didn't work.
One of
So,
my favorite gags in a Frasier episode is Niles and Frasier are about to do couples counseling, and both of them are like, it's just as they're about to walk out the door, they're having all these relationship troubles. And they're like, come on, Frasier, let's go talk to those couples because they need our help. It's just, but that said, I think that that's where some of the value is. You have lived more life, you have more experience in some of those areas. And honestly, I love to hear from people's life experience. And in a complete and utter sideline from what we were deep thing we were saying, your tie is magnificent.
thank you. I need to get the microphone where it's not, when I go to retire one day, I'll send it to you because then I'm like, I'm not wearing these monkey suits anymore. So actually, this came from I was doing 2022. Yeah, 2022. I went over to Wales for Shinedown show. And before I was getting ready to go, John Guarnieri said, "Hey, you need like a tweed suit because we're gonna do some pictures." And I'm like, I don't have a tweed suit. What do you buy tweed suits in the United States? So I went looking. I went to like Men's Warehouse, went to all these places, went to Dillard's and all these department stores, and they're just looking at me like, dude, we don't have tweed. So I ended up getting stuff from online, get over to Europe thinking, oh, cool, I'm gonna get some photos with John and some of the band and all this. And so get there and I'm like, so what's up with the photos? So like, oh no, we're doing the photos in Nottingham. I'm like, I'm only here for Cardiff show. And they're like, yeah. I'm like, so I ended up talking to Brent. So I dressed up one day to go into Wales, and I kind of like had kind of this sort of outfit. I have a couple of them, but I have this sort of outfit on. And Brent Smith from the band's kind of like, "Look at you all dressed up. Where are you going?" I was like, "Well, I'm supposed to be getting photos with like John and Barry and someone, but apparently that's in a few shows, and I'm not here for that long." So I busted out for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Tweed is an underrepresented material in my mind.
I
Like that
agree.
good, you just feel like the wool texture.
Absolutely.
Oh.
So I want to buy a suit in London, so I've been
Hmm.
there twice in 3 years, which is a pretty cool blessing to have. And I've gone by some shops and gone in some, but every time I've done it, or the two times I've done it, I've been like grabbing my midsection, being like, "Dude, you got to lose 20 pounds before you buy a suit. You are not buying a fat suit and then being, drape on you at some
Yeah.
point. You got to lose the weight and then." You have to probably put that thing on every month, and if you can't fit into it, you don't eat the next month or something. So I don't know.
You know, it's kind of like the thing with wedding dresses for women is like getting the nice tailored suit for a guy. You're like, I
Right.
have this custom fit to the measurements I want to be. Therefore, I have to maintain this.
And it's hard, we talked a little offline about this. It's hard when you get to this stage. I'm 48.
Don't look it. You look fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Early 40s.
What's that?
Early 40s. That would be
Early.
what I'd guess.
I'll take early. Although I'm in a great spot in life. I always thought as I'd get older, I'd kind of be a little more crotchety about it, maybe because
Hmm.
you're
Hmm.
getting closer to the finish line than you when you
Yeah.
started, obviously. It's the opposite. I'm
Hmm.
actually really enjoy the aging. I don't enjoy every part of the aging process, but I kind of enjoy what comes with it, the benefits that come with it. But the weight thing, I'm not like college and all through my 20s. I could have eaten a table full of lard and
Hmm.
protein and this and that, and I'd lose 2 pounds. And
Yes.
then somewhere in like the early 30s, the mid 30s, kids especially, whatever, marriage, all that stuff, all of a sudden it's like, it's feeling a little tighter here. And oh, next time I buy shorts, I go from like 32 to 34, and I'm like, what is going on here? And then it's like, I need to get more active. My body's like, we're good being a little overweight. I'm like, no, no, we're not. And apparently my body's winning at this point, and I'm putting a fight on again. I started a fight the last couple of weeks. It's like, okay, dude, you're going to bed hungry every night because you're fat. And it's like too bad. So
One of my
we're back at
favorite one of my favorite nuggets that I got from the Ryan Pote interview. I can't remember if it was one of the ones that he had with you, with the Men's Adventure Fiction podcast, or with me. He did a great podcast circuit.
yeah, I did a great job.
But he mentioned that he does a workout program based on his writing. He will like schedule it based on
Yeah.
like his timeline for the book. And I'm like, oh, that is a great like concept of like tying the two together in some way because that's the thing I found is it's harder for me if I'm consistent on my writing. It's harder for me to make it to the gym because the
Yeah.
time the flex time is just shrunk at that
Yeah.
point.
Well, it's kind of like what we were talking about offline. As you get older, you have the if you have the blessing of having children, it changes things
Hmm.
completely. And especially then if you tie that into your writing time, before you get married or before you have kids, if you're a writer or whatever your hobbies might be, you kind of feel like you have infinite time, and you definitely
Hmm.
have extra time. You never have infinite time. But as your priorities change and as your family grows or whatever changes in your life, you realize that that window gets smaller every day, and then you have to be very disciplined.
Hmm.
And I've said this many times over the years. I'm sure people are sick of me saying it. For me, especially when I took writing seriously, and even now when I fall into some bad habits, I realize the television has to stay off the
Yep.
majority of the week. I
Hmm.
get to watch a few episodes here and there as kind of my dessert. And like nights I don't have my kids. I'm not a psychopath. I'm not going to sit on a couch and stare at a wall for 30 minutes and eat. So I mean that's maybe not a psychopath, but to me that's crazy to just do nothing while you're eating. So I'll put something on. I'll put a documentary. I'll put something on. But then as soon as that 30, 40 minute documentary is over, TV goes off, laptop goes back on my lap, and then it's like,
Hmm.
okay, gets because I'm trying to put two again. I'm trying to do another two-book year. Now the Supreme Justice. I'm
Wow.
trying to put two more out, and I'll tell you as we talk how I'm doing that because it's not as magical as I'm writing two full books every year. I couldn't do that with everything else. But to do that, to even get to that accomplishment, I have to be very disciplined. And I'm not
Hmm.
always very disciplined. I can be lazy as can be. That's my human nature to be fat and lazy. And I have to fight that. I get up this morning, I didn't want to go for a walk. I was telling you offline, I had like a 4 hour night sleep on Thursday night into Friday because of my son with some college stuff. Yeah, this morning I thought I'm going to sleep in late. I went to bed reasonably early. I got about 8 hours, which for me is really good.
Hmm.
But I was going to sleep an extra hour, but I woke up at like 8 a.m. And, go to bed at midnight. I was like wide awake, and my alarm had another hour to go. I knew I had the interview with you. And I just said, well, you're up, dude. Go for a walk. So I went
Hmm.
out, did a mile walk, got a few things done, got some writing stuff done, marketing, all that jazz. And then I got pretty.
Well,
Prettier.
you certainly look very attractive on the show. I very yeah. Let's
Hope
just
your
go.
wife doesn't watch these episodes because
Oh,
I
my
don't know what
wife
he's
watching
thinking.
the podcast. Why would that ever happen?
Why
She
would she be
she
interested in what I do?
she watched and listened to the show before we got married, while we were dating, and I think next time she brings up a you did this stuff before we got married, I'll be like, and you listened to my podcast before we got married. See how the tables turn.
You guys have settled into the married life quickly, I tell you.
We're in the advanced program. My mother tells me that we're talking about the issues that you get in like 2 and 5 years, not 1 year. So we're in the accelerated program.
That's a good thing though. Again, I give you advice offline and take it or leave it, but that's what you just said is not negative. Because the honeymoon phase is the honeymoon phase, and people
Hmm.
fall to that and think, well, this is the rest of my life. No, it's not. It's not, and it's not either person's fault. It's just
Hmm.
that's not the reality of life. So the sooner you can kind of tackle those things, sooner you can get better at communicating, all the other things that need to happen, this probably the better chance you have to succeed.
Hmm. And to that point, shifting gears a little bit into talking about writing, I feel like there is a similar thing with a being a writer. That point
Mhm.
where it's not just the romanticism of I'm Hemingway and I've written a book, but
Right.
like you are just published Supreme Justice, the third Body Man book.
Hmm.
You had said in our last interview that you thought it was your best book yet.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. Like, I'm looking forward to seeing what
Thank you.
comes out next because I assume it's going to be even better. Supreme Justice was such a great read. And as much as the honeymoon phase of publishing your own books and being your own everything, I'm sure that some of that has worn off. but the work and the discipline you've put in to these things is paying off
Mhm.
big time. Congratulations. You were in the top 10 on Amazon political suspense thrillers. Like,
Number nine. I'll take number nine. I was trying to get higher, but I had like Kyle Mills, Mark Greaney,
yeah,
Simon Gervais. I don't even
Brian
there's several
Pote.
others.
Like, you had,
Bunch of bestsellers ahead of me, New York Times bestsellers. Like I'm not gonna, as an indie, I'm not gonna sell the numbers they need to get ahead of them, and that's okay. I'm
okay,
totally
but
at peace with totally at peace with that.
you still made it into the top 10.
Yeah,
That is huge.
it is.
Like,
It's a big deal.
how does that feel?
Good, but to me, it's and again, this isn't negative because I love doing this. To me, you're always on to the next project so quickly.
Hmm.
So Supreme Justice has been most of the year, but man, once that thing came out, I gave myself some time to celebrate for a few days. I had a nice cigar. Pretty part of the issue too, not issue, but I quickly went off to Yellowstone, and this was a planned family
Hmm.
trip. So we went to Yellowstone. So the book came out on Tuesday. We flew
Hmm.
out. Well, really, we went up to the hotel Friday night and flew out early Saturday morning for Montana.
Hmm.
So I had only a couple days before it came out, and then I was on this epic trip. And then, yes, I looked at the book. I held the book. I took some photos. Brought a copy to Yellowstone. But then it was all about just family time and
Good.
nature and all that. And then I came back, and and I'm still looking, and I've still been
Hmm.
looking at it. But kind of my brain almost is like it's kind of like it's really has moved on to the next two projects, honestly. So.
I'm curious, like, was that easier to have that immediate, okay, because Yellowstone, from what I remember, like, you can get internet signal, but you pretty much, a lot of it closes you off really quickly just
Yeah.
because of the location. Was that planned to a certain extent so that you had like this gap of, I'm not feeling the, what's everyone saying? What are the reviews coming in? What are the numbers looking like? Was that helpful, or was that a source of anxiety over the trip?
No, it was actually helpful. Yeah, it was a good question. It was helpful. No, it really wasn't planned. It was kind of the only week. So this is the last summer, technically, kind of had my son before he went
Hmm.
off to college. So he's 18, so he doesn't really follow the custody schedule if he doesn't want to. He can.
Yeah.
He normally does because my daughter does. So he'll go
Hmm.
wherever she goes between the houses. But it was the only week that kind of flowed with my work schedule, their custody schedule, everything. And it just so happened that, okay, it's going to be a few days after we go. And then it was a blessing because, yeah, we stayed in a cabin in Gardner, Montana, which was fabulous. I'd go back to
Hmm.
that spot. I loved it. Really was. And it was very accessible. It was a north entrance.
Hmm.
So you had to drive every day to go in to see stuff. But most of what we want to see was in the northern part, anyways. So, within 2 hours, you could see a lot of
Yeah.
stuff from where we were. So it was very simple. Going through Mammoth Hot Springs, then heading out to Roosevelt and the Tower and all that area.
Hmm.
Just really cool. But yeah, the good thing is once you got in the park, you had no signal. You pick one up at one of the places we stopped for lunch most of the days that you could like check texts or make phone calls, but you really couldn't get on the internet. And that was 100% of a blessing. So I didn't have to go like, ooh, how's the book doing? But I didn't look either. I don't look at sales numbers and I mean, I pay the marketing, I do everything.
Hmm.
I do hire people to help as well, but I didn't look at sales numbers till 2 weeks after it came out. I didn't even
Wow.
want to, I didn't open up Amazon and look at it. I looked at the rankings
Hmm.
quickly.
Yes.
And where I saw it was in the rankings kind of gave me an idea of where I was at and says, okay, cool. Because the last book we talked about, Babylon Will Rise, which I thought was a fantastic book, I've gotten a lot of great reviews.
Great
It,
read.
it didn't sell on the level The Body Man has. So super kind of disappointed in a way that I'm like, man, this is such a great series. I want to, and I'll keep working on that series. But I was thinking in my head, it's gonna do what the Body Man does because people
Hmm.
that read the Body Man are gonna go read the Omega Group books. No, not the case. Successful, but
Hmm.
not the success level the Body Man books have had. So I wanted to see the rankings just to say, is it just me? Am all of a sudden I persona non grata in the writing world or something? And quickly I saw once it jumped, I think it started off like around number 12, 13, got up to nine, stayed in nine for the
Hmm.
days we were in Yellowstone. So I'm like, okay, whenever I look at the numbers, I'm not going to be like, oh crap, how am I going to pay the bills? I'll be good. And yeah, and it turned. So I see all the behind numbers. It was profitable that first week. Everything
That's
after the first
awesome.
week. So, and which doesn't always happen with books.
Hmm.
So complete blessing. And again, not profitable, quit my day job. Um, I don't know that that will ever occur, Terrence. I'd like it to, and I'd like to think it can, but it's a tough industry, tough business. And the more authors I talk to
Yeah.
that actually are able to do this as a full-time job is a lot fewer than most people think,
I was
to be
listening
honest.
to the interview you did with A.M. Adair wrote
Yeah.
interview with her. Fantastic job.
Thank you.
It's always really fun when the microphone gets turned. But you had mentioned that just the talking with Kyle Mills that yeah, the metrics for how writing works now versus then in the early 90s has changed significantly.
Yeah, big
Like
time.
if the just general numbers, if a author can make 20,000 on a book, that's awesome and that's amazing, but that's not a income. That's
No.
that's a profitable investment, but it's
Right.
not your day job.
That's travel money is the way I look
Yeah.
at it. If you can make that much, hey, you probably get to go on some cool trips and
Hmm.
maybe put some money towards investments or something like that, or whatever, towards debt for most people. But yeah, to live on, and yeah, 20,000. So, and I think we've talked about the numbers, or I know I've said it on my podcast. And again, you never know if the numbers are 100%, but I've heard it from reputable sources that I think it's 1.8 is officially, but say less than 2% of people make $100,000 or more writing in the United States as a full-time writer. Other people go, man, I'd take $100,000 all day long. Yeah, but if you live in San Francisco, the average house is
Yeah.
1.6 million. If you
Yeah.
live in Northern Virginia, DC area, you're looking at 700 to 900,000 and you're not looking at a mansion. You're looking
Hmm.
at a three-bedroom, two bath, maybe a garage, gridlock traffic to go driving in DC every
Hmm.
day. So calculate what the mortgage payment is on that. And then you go, hey, if you're not making 100,000 living there, you're low middle class. So
Hmm.
the numbers are all relative. And the crazy thing about those numbers is if the average makes 100,000, it's 2% of the average unless James Patterson makes like 50, 60, 70 million, whatever he makes a year. He's in those numbers too. So think
Yes.
how skewed that 2% number really is. That's what's kind of bonkers. And a lot of that sounds negative, and people go, "Oh my goodness, why do you do this?" Because the number one rule of why you're going to write is
Hmm.
why what better be the case. You better love doing this.
Yes.
Now, find a way to make it profitable if you can, 100%. Don't be stupid and get in debt for 10 years of your life to write a couple books. But at the same time, love doing this because if you think you're going in to do this because, like my dream, I'm going to have an island in Fiji and I'm going to have Ferraris just circling around this little three acre island constantly. I might be a little disappointed when I retire, you know?
Well, and I think that that's a lot of my perspective on it is I have more fun writing because it's not my actual job.
Right.
When I listen to some of the authors that I've chat with on the show, and the ones that take on like ghostwriting work, like they are full-time writers, they're
Yeah.
constantly writing, but it's not always necessarily actually what they're writing themselves that is paying the bills for
Right.
themselves. And that's the situation. That's something that like hats off to anyone who does that. I'm happy that that works and that's your job. That's not what I personally want to do.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty happy with I have my normal day job and then I write for a couple of hours and that's my
Mhm.
release mechanism. Now, would I love for that to be something that's a full-time gig? Of course, I'd love to only like actually work for 3 or 4 hours a day, but I know that that's not how that goes. And
Right. And
that's okay.
And maybe here's what here, and I feel the same way with you, but I have this little nagging thing in me that also says is maybe I wouldn't love it. Maybe if I knew those 2, 3, 4 hours a day that are my writing gig and I'm making good money on, maybe the pressure that comes with that, knowing this better. Because I mean, I talked to someone recently, they were talking about an existing series that everyone knows about that's not selling up to what the publisher
Hmm.
once. And the publisher's putting a lot of pressure on these people saying, we need to get to these numbers because they have the
Hmm.
matrix behind the scenes of all the stuff. That's a lot of pressure for something that possibly started as your passion and your hobby and your
Hmm.
love. When it becomes your job, it takes on a whole new meaning. When you have to put food on the table, and I say that with my writing, because
Yeah.
by a lot of people's, and myself too, so I don't mean to demean what I do, but a lot of people's perspective was, well, you're a successful writer. Yes, to some degree I have been, but it's not putting food on the table. I don't make
Hmm.
a success. It's not paying my groceries every month, right? It's not or not reliable enough to pay any of those
Hmm.
things. So yes, I am, but it's something fun. And the minute it flips and becomes, hey, if we want to have dinner tonight, Dad's going to have to sell 20 books today or so, or whatever the numbers are, that puts a different perspective on stuff really, really quickly.
Hmm. Adjusting, putting a different perspective on stuff because we could talk the actual writing business forever, but let's talk a little bit about Supreme Justice.
Love it.
This book, a fantastic read, fantastic cover. I remember when we did the last interview, you sent me that you had the mock-up of what the cover
Got
would
the
look
mock-up,
like.
yeah.
I was like, oh my goodness, this looks amazing. Like, I think that you've done a good job on all your covers.
Hmm.
This one's probably my favorite one so far. It
Me too.
just, it pops and it's
Yeah.
a really good story. Like, it thing that I've learned to prize on this show is when a book is readable. By that I mean it just flows. There's
Hmm.
never a moment where I feel like it takes effort to read it. It's just I breeze through it just flows so easily. And I really like that Babylon Will Rise did that very well for me. I
Thank
Supreme
you.
Justice kicked it up another notch.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And it's an
That's the
ensemble
plan.
story. It's an
Yeah,
ensemble story. There's not just like as much as this is a Body Man book, and this is the third in the Body Man series, you
right.
do a good job of using this both as a tee up to the next things that are going to happen in the series, but also
Hmm.
telling a very satisfying story with Mercy. Tell me a
Right.
little bit about, because I know that it changed as you were writing it.
Yeah,
Do
it
you mind
did.
going into that evolution?
Sure. Yeah. So the story behind this is kind of interesting. This actually started, and I put it in it's in the acknowledgments. I kind of told a brief version of this. So I actually started writing this story back in December of 2020, 2020,
Wow.
2020. Yes,
Hmm.
2020. It'll be 5 years come this December. It'll be 5 years that I started writing it. The quick 10-second version is I had been going through a divorce that full year. It was not the most fun year on planet Earth. It was a very stressful time. The night I started writing Mercy's story was the it was after I came out of mediation, court
Mm.
required, because I didn't know up to that point what's my life going to look like,
Yeah.
what's my child support payments going to be, alimony, finances, time with my kids. It was all a mystery.
Complete uncertainty.
Complete uncertainty and stress because, and it's not knocking my ex-wife. She loves her kids and I love my kids and how much time you're going to see them. And typically courts don't love dads.
Hmm.
Dads typically get thrown under the bus. And for dads not credit or for dads, unfortunately on the negative side is dads are normally crappier than moms. You don't
Yeah.
hear many stories about bad moms. You hear lots of stories about bad dads that abandon their families and cheat on their mothers, cheat on the wives and just that crazy stuff. So I came out of it and I knew what my future was going to look like. And I mean, I say it and it sounds so cliche-ish, but I literally felt the burden come off me as I walked out of the place. I can still remember the feeling. And that was the first time that year that I said, I want to write a story. I want to write. And I had been planning Merci for a while. So I decided I'm going to write her story. Why do you have this attractive female with very good skill set kill people for a living? It's
Hmm.
psychotic. She had a good reason to do it. So I sat down that night and I started writing what I thought was going to be, and I've mentioned this I think in the acknowledgments or somewhere in the book. It was going to be "Put Her Down" was the name of the story because there's a line in the story where it says we got to put her down, and I thought, that's a great title. Mercy's book wasn't a great title, but that's what I was going with. So I started writing the book, and I wrote about 25 to 32,000, somewhere I can't remember now, somewhere in the high 20s, low 30 range. And then literally, and this is ironic too, the day I got my final divorce papers, 3, 4 hours later, I got an email saying we want to publish The Body Man. So all of a sudden, everything became about The Body Man, which I had tried
Hmm.
working on for years to get published, and Merci got put away for like 2.5 years.
Hmm.
So then when I picked Merci back up and started writing on it, I was going to do her own story. It was going to be separate. Body Man was going to show up, but
Hmm.
it was going to be an own third. And as I started learning the business side of this, I realized having a third series is not a good idea
Yeah.
financially from a business. But you're trying to market that, trying to pull it in. I need to make her part of the Body Man series. How do I do that? Well, I'd already started writing the Body Man into some scenes. So I
Hmm.
just said, why don't we just transition this book in one of the Body Man series? And the thing that personally, and I hope readers enjoy it, I know you were saying you did, what I try to do is the Body Man is not a specific person forever. It's a
Hmm.
role. And I want it to be an ensemble. And so some books I want one of the minor characters to be the major character, and other books the body man character is the major character. So for this one, I wanted Merci to be able to have her own backstory, and then something going on. that's also taking place while the end of Breach of Trust happens before Downfall, which is book four, happens. So I kind of have this transitionary book that's a complete story, but it's also telling stuff about what's happening in the next book.
I think it does a masterful job at it. And one of the other things I noted in reading Supreme Justice is because it had come up in our last interview, writing sensuality is a very fine line where
Correct.
it can be tasteless, it can be tacky, it
Right.
can be overpowering. It, I think that you did a great job in something that we just were going over, doing a mini bunch of episodes about those old 90s movies that were doing stuff like The Shadow, The Rocketeer,
Mhm.
etc. 90s movies somehow managed to have a sense of sexiness and sensuality that wasn't off-putting to the point where you couldn't watch a movie as a family.
Right.
I think that you did a great job of kind of being on that line in Supreme
I was saying, I might have
Justice.
crossed it a couple spots, a
Yeah,
couple
yeah.
chapters,
There's
but
a couple of chapters that push it farther, but I think that it
I did
never.
edit some of those out actually to make them more tame, I will say. Because I was like,
Well,
I can't really have
yeah.
my mom. My mom would probably laugh actually, but probably shouldn't have this here.
Okay, but like that's to that point. Like I was working on a short story that I'm going to be publishing that is a sword and sorcery noir
Okay.
mystery. Very you anyway, it's the thing. The main character's a barbarian. Yeah, he basically ogles every woman that walks past his path.
Right.
So the first draft version of it, way more of that stuff.
Yeah.
As you edit is when you start
Right.
going, okay, this is just id on
So
page.
far out there. Yeah.
Then you start reining it in as you edit and it becomes tasteful. And that's why the editing process, I think, is so important. And especially when it becomes those types of scenes, saying less means more,
Right.
usually. And I think that that carries through in every part of writing
Yeah.
because that's how tension works. Tension is, have you heard, there's the thing that Alfred Hitchcock talks about, which is
Uh,
you put a bomb in a briefcase and you put the briefcase underneath the table. If the audience knows the briefcase is there with a timer and
mhm.
one person at the table knows, but three other people don't, it changes the dynamic completely.
Completely. Yeah. Yeah. No, that completely makes sense. Well, and I know we've talked about this before, the sensuality stuff. It's like, especially guys are very visual, but
Hmm.
you want someone's and not in a dirty way. I'm not meaning it that way, but you want people to let
Hmm.
their imagination take something happen because probably what their imagination is going to go with that scene or whatever you've written is probably going to work a lot better than what you're going to say. Because probably the way
Yeah.
you're going to say it, and they'll be like, "Ah, he wouldn't unbutton a shirt like that, or he wouldn't do name it sense. They wouldn't run around naked on the house, you know. Well, yeah, it's because now they have kids. They can't do that, you know. Back before kids, hey, you can walk around naked, and then all of a sudden you have these little human beings that, you don't want them going, what is that? You know, so yeah, you gotta actually, guess what? Be grown up and, wear your boxers and your clothes around the house from now on until you die. It's like that sucks. But yeah,
Until you become Peyton Manning and you have a naked room.
does Peyton Manning have a naked
Is
room?
it Peyton Manning? Who's the old guy that is in Failure to Launch and he has the naked room? McConaughey moves out and he's like, I thought he was a Manning. Right, it's not Peyton.
I've seen Failure to Launch too, and I'm trying to
He's
remember.
the old football
No, you're
guy.
talking. It's Terry Bradshaw.
Terry Bradshaw.
I was gonna
This
say.
is
My
my
brain's going.
sports
Wait,
ball.
Terry Bradshaw probably walks around naked on set on the NFL Fox NFL show. They probably have to digitally put a suit on him because he's kind of crazy. So, and I don't want to see any dude naked. Terry Bradshaw would definitely be towards the top of that list as well. Of like, no, Brad Pitt. Give me Brad Pitt if I have to see someone because he probably has kept himself in good shape. Terry Bradshaw. No.
And the
Let's edit
question,
all this out now. So we've
yeah,
hit the
that
spot that let's edit. No, I'm kidding.
Supreme Justice was
Good
really
transition though.
thank you, a great read. It
Thank you.
it mixes this web of spy thriller, espionage, political thriller, while still maintaining a large degree of humanity. Because, like you said, a woman that decides to start killing people, well, I recently wrote an article on female assassins in the Bond franchise. And
Hmm.
that actually was writing it concurrently to reading Supreme Justice. So it was kind of funny. I'm like, I get the Xenia on a top vibes in a couple of moments. And, but that's not a atypical thing. And one of the things that was interesting in doing the research for that article was the the way in which scholars, because of course scholars look at James Bond movies and write articles on them because they're fun.
Hmm.
There's a the idea of the beautiful woman in the femme fatale reaching the point of actually murdering people
Right.
defies like a sense of the natural order
Right.
for society. And
Right.
that is why it's such a sticky idea in our collective consciousness.
Hmm. 100%. Well, and the other thing too, like with Merci, is you could take that to its full extent of saying you have a woman who's attractive, who has this skill set, she'll kill anyone for money. No, not the case with
Hmm.
Merci. Merci basically has a moral code. It's a loose moral code, but she has a moral code, and that's why in this story I wanted to give something that would challenge it. Because in the
Hmm.
first chapter, I'm not giving anything away. The first chapter of the book's on my website. First chapter of the book, she's up the road from me in Asheville at the Grove Park Inn. She's killing the husband of Supreme Court Justice. She has no problem doing that. Then she goes down to Hendersonville, where I'll be later this afternoon. Has a beer at Dry Falls, goes and gets some nice, sweet treats and has umi sushi, all the fun stuff around Hendersonville to do. But then just a few chapters later, all of a sudden she's presenting with a new contract and says, whoa, Houston, we have a problem. So I wanted to make her not just a cliche character of a female
Hmm.
fatale that's trying to, and also not trying to just take down any man. She'll
Hmm.
take down man or woman if she's paid enough, and if the dossier she's given to her justifies them leaving this earth. And
Hmm.
so there is a certain rule she has, and those are challenged. Those are challenged in the course of this book and conversations she has with even like the president towards the end of the book of there's a lot of things said about what she does, but she does have that moral grounding. And again, people would say, well, she can't have moral grounding. She kills people. But I mean, there is sanctioned murders that take place in the world, and there's people that would say that's a justified thing to do. So, life's complicated, life's sloppy. And if you can take real complications of life and put a little fiction spin on them, and at the end of the day, I say this, and I don't say it in a conceited or arrogant or narcissistic way, but I write stories that I can read at the end,
Yep.
be like, dude, I'm proud of that story. It made me, there's scenes that I will go back and read as I'm doing the edit process, and I'll be across from where I'm sitting on the couch, and I'll laugh out loud. If I can read one of the things I wrote, whether it was 4 years ago when I walked out of my mediation, or whether it was a night ago when I was adding a new chapter, if I can read that scene and just get a little laugh or get something or get excited about it, that's the juice for me. Yeah, I want it to sell. Sure, I'd like the island in Fiji. I'd like the Ferrari. I'm not stupid. But the reality is, that's not why I do any of that. I do that because I have these stories that I've been
Hmm.
blessed enough to be able to come up with. And doubly blessed that people want to read it. But at the end of the day, man, if I'm proud of putting that story out, that's why I did it. And so I got it out of me. And then again, it's kind of weird. I go to the next one. Like, okay, that one's done. And you still talk about the old one. And I'll sometimes flip up old books and read stuff and just, and it makes me smile. Makes me go, hey, one day I'll be gone from this earth and I'll have some books that, and if someone picks up the wrong page, they might be like, what in the world? What kind of an ungodly, horrible person wrote this chapter, this page? It's like, I wish that a ghost for me could, kind of pop up and just say, read the whole book or read the rest of the chapter or yes, I am. Let me rest in peace, whatever.
Yes, I am. Let me rest in peace. I want that like those like motivational posters, just something like that. One of the characters that really is a standout for me in the Body Man series so far has been Preacher, the president.
Yeah,
I don't remember his actual name off the top of my head, so my apologies. But
that's okay.
his code name of being Preacher just stands out so well because he does a good job of being a very real character.
Hmm.
His interactions with Jordan are brilliant. Like just
Thank you.
they're well done, they're great scenes. Normally when I pick up a military thriller or thriller of any kind and you have the president is feels like such a caricature of a human being at times,
Right.
or they're basically just a name on a page.
Yeah.
Whereas Preacher, you give him enough individual character where he doesn't seem infallible, which is another thing
Hmm.
that can easily happen, like a George Washington. He reminds me of George Washington, actually. That's a good
Hmm.
comparison here, where I read it and he's a human being with flaws. He makes
Yeah.
mistakes, but he genuinely wants to do the right thing.
Right. Um, Let me tell you something. I don't know if I've said it to any of the interviews either. So the person that is based on, and it's completely fictional. So it's this person, elements of them, but it's really a fictional character. That person I'm going to see in a few hours, and they're trying to work on a book, and it's a
Oh,
devotional book.
cool.
That's actually a devotional book they wrote years ago, and he reached out to me. It's one of my closest friends. He's in the back. He's in the acknowledgments. TC Thompson is his real name. And he wrote this book years ago and he reached out a couple weeks ago. It's like, I think I want to try to publish this thing. And I'm like, let me come up one Saturday and I'll go through the rigmarole with you and we'll get you on the right gear. But yeah, when I was creating that character years ago, for basically for breach of trust, I wanted to pull in some real world elements of someone I knew, but then also in a way kind of make the presidency what I wish it was. Because
Hmm.
I think it started pure, and I'm a
Hmm.
history buff, so I
Yeah.
really think like there's negative things, of course, said about the founding fathers, George Washington, slavery, and all these things that societally were happening at that time. But I really think, generally speaking, a lot of those guys were in it for the right reason.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's the case in any way, shape, or form in my lifetime. I don't know if
Yeah.
any of the, and it's not playing politics with this. I don't know if any of these jokers are in there for pure reasons. I think they might sometimes be in there because they think they want to do what's right. But I think a lot of times, man, I mean, it's a big deal to say you were the president of the United States. You want coming out with the book is really cool, but possible that hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands of people will ever see that book if you're lucky. Man, you'd be the president. There might be a monument, made after you at some point. I mean, people are going to remember you. Well, that's a big reason for someone to get in to do it, not for the purest intention or for
Hmm.
money. That's the other thing. And again, this isn't knocking in here any of the former presidents we've had, but if you look at the numbers of most people that come into the presidency, um, financially, how they are when they come in versus what they're like 10 years after, this is a business, man. They go out and give speeches for $500,000. I think Reagan, which as growing up as a kid, I liked Reagan. I think Reagan did like $1 million speech one weekend to some corporate gig for, 2 days, 2 day junket or whatever. So the money these guys make is insane. And that, from what I know from history, that wasn't the case when it started. So I kind of wanted to bring it back to like, hey, we got someone in here, and Preacher says in this, I was an accidental president. I never had that on my radar. I was kind of pulled into this. And to me, that makes a pure president in a way. And so it kind of changes his perspective on his time in the office and also why he got into the office. So it's my preaching way of saying, man, I wish we had more opportunities like that because I don't know on our current landscape if that's even possible to happen in my lifetime again. I think the machine's so big. I
Hmm.
do firmly believe that it's one snake with two heads. There's so many little things you could make comments about, but I think if we could somehow reset and get back to like Terrence Leahy, you get to be the next president of the United States because we think you're going to do a good job. Not Terrence saying, I want a big, huge monument pointed up to the sky on the National Mall with my name etched onto it in gold. Leahy. I don't, give me pure intentions on why people are doing stuff, which I think to me circles back to the writing. To what I've said, and I think a lot of authors would say the same thing. They got into this because they love to tell stories. Eventually,
Hmm.
you realize I got to make profit, or you're going to sink fast, or maybe you got a lot of money and you can just write books and throw money at it. But that's not normal. Most people that do this is because they love to do it, and I think that then comes out, no matter what your field is. If you want to be a doctor, and you start with the pure intentions and you can hold on to that as much as possible, I think you're probably going to be a better doctor than someone that goes, I want a place in Bahamas, I want a place in Barbados, I want four Mercedes, I want that. Yeah, then you're probably going to be like, Mr. Lehu, you need this orthopedic surgery on your knee. Well, no, maybe you don't. Maybe you could just do some rehab and get some stem cells and you could fix that. Or I could make $40,000 by putting you under a scope and going, we're gonna fix that for you. I think that changes things a lot.
Hmm.
I'm off my soapbox now.
It's a good soapbox. And with that, like you are in the business of writing and you
Yeah,
do a great job of running your writing as a business
thank
with
you.
a good heart here. you have been putting out two books a year for the past 3 years now?
Two,
2 years.
two. Well, Body Man came out, and Body Man was just reissued, so that came out too. So yeah, 2 years, I guess now.
That's an
Seems like
impressive
10.
that's an impressive quantity of work. And again, Supreme Justice hit number 9 on Amazon. Like the work is paying off and you're
Yeah.
seeing the business grow, and that is awesome. How do you balance trying to make two books happen a year at this point?
So it's not sustainable, I will say
Hmm.
from the get-go. And B, so I wrote my first book, Vengeance, in 2014, and The Body Man got published in 2021. So math.
Yeah.
Math will tell you that it was about a 6.5 year span. So in that 6.5 years, I wrote a bunch of stuff. So what I've kind of done the last couple years as I got out of from the traditional publisher or the small publisher to do indie publishing is I've kind of gone back and reassessed what I wrote those first 6 years and the good, the bad, and the ugly. Hey, is any of this stuff viable? And what I found with my Troy Evans, so the Troy Evans books, I wrote three full books and two novellas. One was small, one was pretty big, almost a book. So I've kind of been able to take that world of what I wrote with the Troy Evans and the Omega groups, what became the Omega book series. I've been able to take that and kind of take the old stuff. And now that I'm a better writer, I'm more comfortable. I've got better technology. I've got better software and stuff for like grammar and all that. Even though I still hire editors and stuff. I'm able to kind of go back in and kind of take those former stuff and give it a new set of fresh eyes and fix it basically. Because when I wrote those stories, and not all of them will probably be published, but when I wrote those stories, they were really good stories. And I had early readers be like, man, this shouldn't be published. Well, it didn't get published and I still had a lot to learn. So I'm able to kind of go back, and I still have several things that are kind of low-hanging fruit that I'm working on in the next 2 years as my second book of the year, but that's already been pretty much written. I'm just going back and redoing stuff and fixing stuff. Well, I can do that in a month or two versus 6 months of writing a brand new book from scratch. So right now, the next Omega Group book, I'm hoping to come out probably January. I should announce
Hmm.
that in September. I got to figure that out. I'm editing it now. It's a really good book, and it's a backstory for Troy. So Troy Evans started as a someone that was going to mirror his dad and work for the FBI, and then 9/11 happened. And so
Hmm.
this was a story too I was concerned to put out years ago because 9/11 is a very small portion of it, but it's a part of the story. And I'm like, man, I don't
Hmm.
want to seem like I'm kind of taking advantage of this horrible event that
You're not
killed
capitalizing
thousands
on
of
it.
right. It's not what I'm trying to do. And actually this next book is dedicated to the 9/11 first responders because yes, stuff is mentioned about 9/11 in the book, but that's I didn't write this so I could say let's take advantage of the worst incident that's ever happened on US soil. It's like no, but I needed that incident to happen to take
Hmm.
this character that was going to follow in his dad's footsteps and all of a sudden, guess what? I'm changing my life's path. I needed a
Hmm.
big event, and that event fit perfectly with the world at that time. So that should come out January, hopefully. I don't have a title for it. The title I have, I don't like at all. So I kind of have six new titles. I'm kind of gonna throw in a box and pull a name out. Maybe I don't know. I got to run by some of my beta people and be like, "What do you think's stronger?" Because I'm struggling. And then next summer, Downfall is the
Hmm.
next Body Man book. That one's not written very much. I don't have a lot done on that one, so I will probably dive into that one in October, November,
Hmm.
hardcore to be done by probably like February or March, and then have it get it out to betas. And then I'm looking probably July or August next year for that one. And then I'll try to do the same thing because I already have the next Body Man book after that already started, which is kind of
Awesome.
crazy. Yeah, so I know, and it's going to be, so they're kind of going back and forth real quick, is what I'll say. Is so you got one book that maybe the Body Man is kind of, yeah, the main protagonist, but the others are
Hmm.
there. And then one of the other protagonists or one of the other minor characters will kind of take on a bigger role and then we'll go back to the Body Man. So I'm kind of seesawing back and forth. So we'll do the same thing. The book five in the Body Man series is going to follow Eli and Kat,
Oh,
who
cool.
instrumental in the first Body Man book, the original book. It's going to go back to them. That's going to be heavy with them. Body Man will be in it too, but they're going to be this. They're going to be the focus, and you'll get more of their backstory. You'll get more of what happened with them. Kind of what I did with Merci. So the cool thing about being indie is I can do whatever the heck I want. I don't have someone
Yes.
going. No, that doesn't work for us. Current trends are that you should be writing this. I don't have to do any of that. So if I'm able to put out stories I enjoy, that others enjoy, they're able to be, they're able to pay for themselves and be profitable, then the positive on it is I don't have that overbearing strength. If you need to go sell 70,000 copies or we're going to drop you in your contract, I don't have to deal with any of that crap that a lot of people have to deal with. And it's only going to be successful as I bust my tail and my
Hmm.
readers stick with me and all that. So I've got to put out good books. And I know I have to put good books out, but I think I can do that part. I just have to keep on the path I'm on.
I mean, again, you're showing great results so far. Your books are only getting better. You hit number nine. That is, as an indie publisher, that is incredible. And I'm so excited to see what you've got coming down the pipe. Eric, this has been a great conversation. Where can people go to learn more about you, your work, and your books?
Go to my website, ericpbishop.com. If you go there, it'll tell you about all the books, tell you links how to get them. If you go to social media, I'm on X, EPB author, I believe. Same as Instagram, EPB author. Facebook is Eric P. Bishop author. I'm on Threads. I think I'm even on Blue Sky, although that's the stupidest one. I think I dumped it once and put it back on. I probably need to dump it again. So I don't, that one I post stuff and I'll be lucky if anyone ever sees it. But yeah, I'm out there. And then also, as you've been, I dressed up for your last appearance. You can
You
go
look
to Tale of
fantastic.
Two Scribes. And I got a couple episodes in the can. I'm kind of backing off a little bit just because of everything else going on. I'll probably
Hmm.
just put two episodes out a month going forward. We'll see. I'm still definitely love doing the podcast, but as soon as it becomes too much work, that's the first thing that I say,
Yeah,
we'll take a couple weeks off for that. So
that's perfectly fair. We will link everything in the show notes. Eric, thanks again for coming on the show.
thanks, Terrence. I appreciate it.